Well, good evening, my friends. Thank you for joining me for Last Days Live on this blustery Monday night. Iowa caucuses are in full swing, I am told. And so all the Democrats there in that area, they have got their opportunity to express themselves and to choose from whatever flavor of socialism they desire to insert upon the country. I'll be honest with you, as I look at the way things are as far as our political context is concerned, it really concerns me because I think, as I've said probably too many times before, I think you get the point, but let me just repeat it one last time in case you don't. I think there's two big things on the horizon, one of which could be the return of Jesus. That's the one I would love to see happen. But the other one is, I think that the Lord's going to have to bring this country into judgment and the consequences that are going to come our way. So the Iowa caucuses, as they do whatever they do up there. Again, they got their choice in whatever flavor of socialism they want to force on the nation, and so that's where you are. The Democratic Party has just gone crazy to the left. I was reading an article this past week that said Nancy Pelosi, because of the way she acted during this impeachment thing and the lack of leadership that she provided and all that kind of thing, that she is likely on the way out, and that she might be the last bastion of hope as far as any centrist position in the Democratic Party. Whoever this person was that was writing that was suggesting that it looks like that it's going to throw the Democratic Party, to the extreme left, and that doesn't do well for you and I, because so what that does is it continues to attract the young, the immature, those, for instance, those who say, yeah, I want my college education to be paid for. The government ought to pay for my education. Never giving consideration to the fact that somebody has to fund the government, which is me, and that's you. And because some of these young people have never really been in the workforce, they've never really had to pay a lot of taxes, that they're at that age where, they're pretty much, living in mom and dad's basement and that kind of thing. Maybe mom and dad are footing pretty much all the bills as far as they're concerned. They don't have any grasp of this idea of paying for stuff. And then, of course, many of their parents actually have funded much of their life with the credit card. And so they're up to their eyeballs in debt. They don't even understand responsible spending. And so what we have is we got a younger generation that's coming on that has no idea how to manage the budget, be responsible for many of the things as far as paying the bills are concerned. And so socialism sounds good. It's very much a parallel to the way things are as far as morality is concerned in our nation. The devil always makes it look good. I mean, it tastes good, it feels good, it's all that momentary, ooh, this is going to be great. But at the end, somebody's got to pay for this. And so up there in Iowa, they got the caucuses going, and whatever flavor of socialism they choose, that seems to be at least the beginning stages as to who we're going to have running against President Trump. Pause with me for a moment. That heater has got to go because I'm hot. It was a beautiful day here in northeast Arkansas, and I don't need that heater on because I got long sleeves on. It's just getting me hot all over. And then I get excited about this topic because every time I talk about Last Days Live, I get to thinking about the return of Jesus, and how great that's going to be. I can't hardly wait. I told you, a few weeks ago that I had a precious moment with one of a former elder and mentor of mine, and we prayed together. He put his gray head right here on my shoulder, and as we pulled away, he had tears running down both cheeks, and I could just tell he's tired. He's tired. His wife went to be with the Lord some years ago, and he's tired. He's ready to go. He's worked hard and done a lot of traveling, a lot of good things for the Lord. Well, I'm not where he is as far as my age is concerned, but I'm tired too. And I'll be honest with you. I look around, I see what's happening in the world, and I see what's happening in the church, and I see individuals are so enamored with just keeping the status quo, and they're not concerned. They don't think that it's going to come in their generation. And so we've got time, and so let's play our games, and let's spend more time getting excited about the Super Bowl than we do about actually doing the Lord's work. You know what I'm saying? And you find them being more enamored with teaching their little girls how to hold a softball bat and teaching their little boys how to shoot a jump shot, or and they get excited about things that don't matter. And nobody seems to really be paying attention to the fact that these are the last days. And as we are in the last days, whether the Lord comes back in your lifetime or not, we are called to live as if he's coming back 30 minutes from now. And I don't see that urgency in the church, and it really, really concerns me. Thus, it's happening right before our eyes. Going back to the Iowa caucuses, so that's what I'm saying. I just feel like when it comes from we got two major parties in this nation, and neither of them are pure. Neither of them have a great deal of righteousness. There's a lot of problems in the Republican Party. But man, is it a stark contrast to what's going on in the perversion of the Democratic Party that has within their platform the defense of baby sacrifice. And we've got a homosexual candidate that is running for the presidency. And this guy's got a good chance of winning the opportunity to go against President Trump. Think about where we're at in the world, and think about the left and what they're doing and how they're leading and how they're just eroding our moral base. Anyhow, let's get into the topic this evening. All right, so there you go. It's happening right before our eyes. Tonight, I decided last week, I kind of introduced this, and I said I'm not going to, but tonight I'm going to. This is the name of the virus that started there in China, and I heard it on Google, not Google, Siri pronounced it for me here just a few minutes ago, but it's not the coronavirus. That's not the way you say it, but that's what it looks like to me. I call it the China virus because they're saying that it probably started in an open market where a lot of animals were, there and whatever. And anyhow, it's spreading rapidly. You see the statistics there. Actually, those statistics are wrong. According to NBC, that first one, I got 361 deaths. According to NBC, just a few minutes ago, they're reporting some 425 deaths worldwide. 17,000 plus sickened, and 11 confirmed cases just in the United States. I'm told that there's 24 countries that have been affected by this, and people who are sick, etc. I also read today that in comparison to just the general flu, whatever that is, but just in comparison to the general flu, that the 361 deaths is nothing. But I think what they're concerned about is that how rapidly this is being transmitted. And that kind of leads me to some of the applications we're going to be making this evening with regards to the world getting smaller. And it's not so, obviously, it's not that the globe is shrunk. That's not the point at all. It's more about the fact that we're starting to live more and more on top of each other. It's two things, actually. We're living on top of each other. And number two, because of the technology that we presently have, we are able to know what's going on literally on the other side of the globe. There could be somebody right now who's watching me on the other side of the globe. We regularly have people from the Philippines who I know are watching our live stuff. And so, from, miles and miles and miles away. And through technology, they can know immediately what's going on the other side of the globe. And so the world is getting smaller in the sense that we're living on top of each other more and more. And number two, there just aren't very many corners in which you can go to kind of lose yourself, be private, that kind of thing. The whole idea of falling off the grid is a difficult assignment in today's world. Not that it can't happen, and I'm not so sure, but what Christians ought to be doing a little more research with regards to that. Because if the next big thing isn't the return of Jesus, then you and I, the next big thing I'm convinced is that we're going to endure a great deal of suffering. And I'm not sure that our families are ready for that. I'm definitely not sure that our churches and the church leaders have it in their purview that this is coming, and I need to prepare my flock that they're tough, they're ready, they're able, all of those kind of things. Because we're more excited about celebrating, something secular and worldly than we are about celebrating the fact that we're actually seeing spiritual growth. We're all about numbers, and what we can post on the board. Last Sunday we had, when elderships really need to be about how deeply committed are your people? How well do they know the book? Are they folks who can not only quote it, but you can see that they're applying it on a more and more daily basis? They're surrendering themselves more and more to the Lord? Or do you find them being people who are actually surrendering themselves more and more to the popularity of the community and what's going on around about them? What I'd like to talk to you just in brief this evening about, and I'm going to use this coronavirus, this China virus, I want to use this as kind of our launching pad, because just how quickly somebody gets sick in China, and all of a sudden now we're seeing 11 cases here in the United States and 24 countries that have been affected by it. You see how quickly this thing wraps itself around the world. Thus, I want to take you to a passage of Scripture. In Luke 21, Jesus is discussing the last days. Now, it's a very difficult passage to interpret because evidently in this passage, he's also talking about AD 70, the fall of Jerusalem. And so separating it out is tough. At what point is he talking specifically about the difficulties that are coming on the world back in the day and the difficulties that will be coming on the world just prior to the return of the Son of Man? It's very difficult to pull it apart and to understand. And so I think the most healthy thing that we can do with this is we can assume that some of what's being said might very well have a double application, that it not only affected them back in the day, but it's going to affect you and I if we are alive during the last days when we're just prior to the return of Jesus. However that is, I think that there is an application to be made from Luke chapter 21 directly to today and this coronavirus thing. Luke 21. Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation. You've seen that throughout history, so that's nothing new. And kingdom against kingdom, again, same thing. There will be great earthquakes, again, throughout history. We've known of that. And famines throughout history. And pestilences, again, throughout history, in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. Now, again, I recognize that throughout history, all of those things have taken place. I get that, okay? But I think that there's a couple applications that we can make directly to today that is not only important, but I think that we're kind of got our heads in the sand if we're not willing to go this direction. Pestilence, disease that spreads across. This is something that God has used in judgment throughout the ages to bring his folks to their knees in recognition that they need him. Is it possible that God could be using that very same thing today? Absolutely. Now, it's very important we recognize, it's kind of like, a hurricane comes through and it hits one of my favorite states in Louisiana, where I've got a lot of godly friends and a lot of godly supporters, and all of a sudden you say, well, Louisiana must be a state full of sinners. That's because that's where the hurricanes hit. Well, I don't think that you can go that far. I do think that you can say this, however. It's because of the general culture of sin that God allows certain things to happen to draw us back to him, to get our attention, okay? And it could be a hurricane that comes up the Gulf, or it could be, as it is here in Northeast Arkansas, we could get hit by a tornado, or it could be a horrible snowstorm that hits the Northeast. On and on you could go with that. Earthquake in California, all of those kind of things. Tragedy happens because of sin. Now, it's not specifically addressed to the fact that, okay, because Jesus talked about this with the guy, that he had to heal, who sinned? Well, the sin itself is something that all of us continue to bring about, this culture of sin. And because all of us are struggling with it, and many of us don't care, we're just fully engrossed in it, the more the sin becomes ripe, if you will, and begins to continue to infiltrate the culture, the greater the tragedies are going to come about just because of the natural scenarios that are. Think about, as I said last week, just think about the breakdown in our immune system because of the way we eat, the gluttonous approach that we have to life, the fact that we're living on top of each other, all the foreign substances that we're taking into our bodies, the antibiotics, that we're shoving into our systems, and all of these things are breaking down the natural form of what we had about 6,000 years ago when we were created in the garden. And because of that, we're seeing that the longer we live on this planet, and the more we are divested in a sinful lifestyle, the more it's not only going to affect us, it's going to have a generational effect. Now back to our passage. So I don't know. Pestilences, is he referring specifically to this virus thing that came out of China? Probably not. But certainly the concept is there. And the reason that we are struggling is because we are a people who are spending less and less time giving our attentions to the heavens and more time giving our attentions to ingratiating ourselves to the world. Let me, if I can, make some applications. Maybe I can say it better this way. Here's some applications as I was looking at that passage that I was drawing. Number one, we need to recognize that the world has not become overpopulated. It has become overconcentrated. That meaning that there are still miles and miles and miles of land, even here in the United States, where there's nobody living on it. And it's perfectly good land. And with just a little bit of agricultural savvy, you could go in there and you could live a good life in a lot of these places across the United States. Okay? It's not that we're overpopulated. It's that we're over-concentrated. We're living on top of each other. And so you look at the New York Cities and the Los Angeleses, and you look at the the Houstons, and you look at the Chicagos and all of that. You look at us living on top of each other, and you see that what happens when you do that is not only do you make it a perfect situation to transmit diseases, etc. You make it the perfect situation to transmit temptation and the sinful ways. I think, number two, that the Babylon principle is growing rapidly worldwide. For whatever reason, I think it's because of technology primarily, but we feel like that we have got to live close to other folks. And sometimes this living close to other folks actually leads us to literally living where you have no space between you and the house next door. I remember years ago traveling to San Francisco as I was out there a whole lot. Got a good friends in San Francisco, but I mean, they had no front yard. And their house literally butted up against the next house. They might as well be living in an apartment. Well, my point is that when you begin living on top of each other, it just makes it the perfect scenario to feed off of each other in negative ways, as much as positive, but generally it seems to be the negative. Number three, obsession with mass gatherings puts us more and more at risk. You know that this is true. And this is, and again, I know you're going to say, well, Sonny's off on his tangent again, but too bad. Here I am. Public schools. To me, even if you take away the moral degradation and the immoral impact of peer pressure, etc., and putting 20 plus kids into one classroom and expecting one teacher to monitor their conversations and to monitor the peer pressure and all that it's really brainless, isn't it? When you think about the process that we are doing with some of our kids. And then you add to that, we're going to collect them all. Every terrorist in the world knows that generally speaking in America, you could find the majority of a community's children in one spot. Think about that. That doesn't make any sense. Now let's go further. On top of that, we've had it here just this year already. We've had schools closed down because of just the general strain of flu. What's going to happen when real pestilence, as the biblical term was being used there, comes to our situation, and we've got a situation where we're choosing to put our children literally on top of each other. You think about it. Think about the cookie cutter mentality of public school systems and how that everybody's supposed to come out thinking, learning the same thing, and learning it, by the way, at the same pace. Because we've only got that one teacher who's trying to monitor 20 plus kids in one classroom. How can there be that individual attention? You think about the peer pressure from a moral standpoint. I'm not even talking about physical diseases. Think about moral diseases that we're passing along. As we continue to gather in mass, and as we celebrate these mass things that come into, we are perpetuating, we're promoting the opportunity for us to share negatively in each other's lives. That's why I've been preaching a lot about home churches, because I think this is not only the future, but I think that it's going to be the only way that we're going to survive as Christians. Because think about it, it's the same kind of a concept as other mass gatherings. We take a bunch of folks, stick them in one common building for 3 hours, 3 hours on Sunday morning, and we shake hands, we hug on each other, all of those things, and we got the whole auditorium full of all of that's going on. And you think to yourself, it's just a perfect breeding ground for sickness, etc. But what if you had a home scenario? I'm not saying it eliminates the problem totally, but what I am saying is that it's a whole lot. We got about 15, that's 3 of them. And we got about 15 that meet with us on a weekly basis in our little home church scenario. And I'm going to tell you, it's been some of the most meaningful things I've had in years. We're loving the experience. But one of the things that we love about it is that the accountability is just built in. I mean, there's only 15 of us. And so it's pretty clear how we can monitor these 15. And we look, we sit in a circle, when we do our prayer time, our Bible study, all of those kind of things, looking at each other in our eyes, not facing the back of the head of the fellow in front of us, etc. I believe that going back to number 2, the Babel principle is something we've got to restudy, rethink. There was a reason that God scattered his people. There was a reason he didn't want them living on top of each other. Number 4, a big conviction that you've got to come to in this sorry world that we're living in as it continues to self-destruct is this. You got to prioritize heaven. Now, you know I'm going to have that in my closing, but you got to prioritize heaven. Because God forbid, but what if your child comes down with this China virus and you're in the hospital holding that little guy's hand as he drifts off towards the heavens? Is it going to devastate you? Is it going to destroy your faith? How are you going to deal with that? And will your child, what if it's a teenager and he is well within his years to have come to Christ, but he hasn't come to Christ? What if he's an older child and they have left the Lord since and they're not walking faithful any longer? And you've got to hold their hand as they drift off to the other side. We've got to prioritize heaven. We have got to put it first. I've often told my family this. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for them to go. The one thing I don't want to have happen as far as my family, though, is I really would like to do my best to make sure that when they can go as comfortably as possible. That's very important to me. And so I'm going to do my best. That's why I involve myself in politics, because I want to do everything that I can to give my family a comfortable scenario in which they can live and eventually die, okay? But my priority, this may sound totally radical, but that's all right. A lot of folks are dismissing me anyhow. My priority is not that my folks stay alive. That is not top priority for me. My top priority is that my folks stay close to God. My children, my wife, they can die, and it would make me sad because of the little interim that I would have where I would be separated from them. But knowing that they are right with God is all that matters. There are parents watching right now, I suspect, whose children are not faithful to the Lord. And I'm not sure how you're sleeping at night. God bless you. I hope that you're praying. I hope that you're just fasting over those children, etc. But you need to look over your shoulder and ask yourself, how did you get here? What led you to this scenario, this situation? And then whatever you come up with as far as the answers are concerned, would you please make sure that you're doing everything possible to teach the next generation not to repeat your footsteps? And if you find somebody who's going a different direction, would you do your best, please, not to pass out all the excuses and try to deflect blame and deflect responsibility? Will you just man up and will you say to yourself, I blew it in this area? And help some younger parents recognize the path they don't want to go down, which is largely materialistic gluttony, ingratiating yourself to the world, tethering yourself to things that don't matter, like teaching your daughter to shoot a three-pointer and your son to catch a football. Those kind of things, although they can be fine as far as recreation is concerned, we have made them into gods. We have made them into the major thrust as far as our lives are concerned. And our conviction as far as prioritizing heaven, it just isn't showing. Thus, I saw this just today. Parents, one day our children will also stand before King Jesus. And he'll care little about their grades, their batting average, their three-point percentages, the yards per carry, their popularity, their college transcripts, or class rank. How are we investing in their souls? The one thing he cares about most. Man, that's powerful. And I look at the church and I look at some of my friends and I see them just enamored with stuff that just does not matter. Yeah, I'll get myself here in deep trouble, but this Super Bowl weekend, didn't watch a moment of it. I'm Chiefs, that they won first time in years, so that's wonderful. And I understand there was a wonderful patriotic moment, in the opening and all of those kind of things. I'm told the halftime show was pretty perverted, but that's pretty typical of Super Bowls. I could be very critical. It's not really Super Bowl at all, as much as it is how we worship this and how excited we are about this in comparison to how excited we are about making sure that our child is right with the Lord. Give you a quickie. I know that I'm speaking to some people right now who are investing large amounts of money and a lot of time in trying to get their child into a position where they can win a sports scholarship. But that same child comes to you and says, Daddy, I would rather take some of that money and put it aside so that I could go on a mission trip to a third world country. And we shake our head and we say, no, it's too dangerous. I don't have the time, the money, et cetera, et cetera. You see the priorities? You see what I'm saying? I'm not suggesting that it's a bad, unchristian idea for your child to play in sports if it can help them get a scholarship to college, whatever. But the moment we prioritize it over doing evangelistic work, knowing God better, the moment we lose the blessing of God. And I'm seeing it over and over and over again in the church. Folks who are more excited about their child's grades, about their child being able to be athletic, about their child being beautiful and being able to go through pageants and homecomings and whatever it may be. And they're so excited about those things, more so it seems than they are about watching their child. And how many generations have I seen? Have I watched? How many times have I counseled parents over the years who will come to me years later and they'll say, Sonny, I wish I had listened to you when you were speaking at those youth rallies. I wish I would have listened to you when you were talking to me about parenting because I've lost my child to the world. And I shake my head and I think to myself, well, I can only do so much. I can provide you the information, but eventually young parents have got to do something with it. Titus 2, 3 through 5, it's biblical. You can't dismiss it as being cultural. Older women are to teach younger women how to be specifically good homemakers. If we will do that, imagine some of the problems that would just go away. And yet that trend, by the way, it applies to men as well. Older men need to be teaching younger men. But we don't even have the older generation doing that any longer. And even if they wanted to do it, the younger generation isn't paying attention. You see how we're in trouble. We've got to understand that when our children stand before the Lord, He's not going to ask them about their grades, their batting average, their three-point percentages, the yards they carried in football, your popularity, were you the homecoming queen? None of that stuff is going to even matter at that particular point. So why do we invest so much time there rather than trying to take care of our children with regards to their soul? I don't know, but I am willing to call us out on it. We've got to do better. As I told you last week, some of you are going to receive this letter in the mail, and it basically is a list of the various times that I go live each week. There's 6 of them, and I got to thinking recently about the number. I am on track this year, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful for you. I'm on track this year to speak more than I have spoken any time in my entire ministry. It's really a wonderful. So 6 times every week I go live, and they're all on Sunday, Monday, or Wednesday. On Sunday, here they are real quickly. Sunday at 8 o'clock is a Bible class, Lord's Day Live. 8:30, sermon time. And by the way, we're talking this week, and there's in a series this month, we're talking about overseeing the overseer. Talking about the eldership and how important they are to the church, but yet how important it is for them to be accountable. And then that's 8, 8:30. And then that afternoon at 5 o'clock for the School of Biblical Studies at MAP, we are studying authority and how you can know that the Bible and how you can interpret the Bible through the principles that the Bible offers us, not some group. Then, if you stay with me, then on Monday mornings, like we did this morning at 10 o'clock, we've got Monday Morning Live, and that's generally Holy Hope and humor sandwiched together. And then at 8 o'clock, which we're doing right now, got Last Days Live. And then on Wednesdays, we're studying through the book of 1 Corinthians. 6 times I get to speak. Anyhow, this letter is telling you about that. We're working overtime to make these things good, put them up, etc. But I wanted to tell you real quickly that to contributors, those who contribute, they get the opportunity to get all of those lessons, so a potential of 24 lessons every month, all of those on a flash drive that I can send to you and stick in your computer. You can use it in your small group discussions, use it for homeschooling, use it for your home church gatherings, whatever it may be. But look for this letter in the mail, will you? And if you don't get this letter in the mail within the next month, that means you're not on my mail list. That doesn't mean I don't want you on my mail list. I would love for you to send me your address, your physical address, so that I can send this out. Second thing, we are about to send out our first of this year, our first email newsletter. And it will list the same things and a little link so that you can go there real quickly and you can look at these various things that you might have missed during the month. If you haven't already, please send me your email address.